Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova. Thanks for joining us. I know it's been a lot of synagogue this week for a lot of people. And so Shabbat Shiva is not typically the best attended service, but I often think it's one of the most intense Shabbat experiences of the year, because this is the time when we really are reflecting about how we can improve ourselves, improve our world, and how we can grow. And so this Shabbat is supposed to be one of more prayer and thoughtfulness than any other throughout the year. And so Cantor Brown Levy is not here tonight, though, because for cantors, their voice is very much their instrument. And I have worked with cantors in the past who sing so much on Rosh Hashanah, then sing on Shabbat, and then sing on Yom Kippur, then sing for Shabbat, and then Sukkot and everything, and end up injuring themselves and being unable to sing for months. So I've asked Cantor Brown Levy to have some vocal rest tonight and next week so that we can enjoy her beautiful singing for many months to come. We are going to begin our service in our Mishkan Tefillah Siddur, and we'll start off with Mayafe Hayom on page 128. Mayafe Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Mayafe Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Mayafe Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Mayafe Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. We'll turn to page 142 to sing Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharei, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharei, Malchei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Boahem l'shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malchei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Tzeitim l'shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch. Page 138. Lecha dodi likraka la yalala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lehadodi lekrakala yalala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela Shamor vezachor bedibur echad Ishmianu el hamiuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad L'shemo tiferet velitila Lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekavela Lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekavela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha Ki hi mekor ha-beracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshvatila Lehadodi lekrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5. Hitoreri kiva ore kumi ori uri shirdaberi kevod Adonai alaich nigla lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekavela lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekavela. You're invited to rise as we face the entrance and greet Shabbat. Boi v'shalom atere bala gam b'simcha uv'tzahala tochem unei am segula boi chala boi chala lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela lehadodi likrakala yala 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. And this time we will light our Shabbat candles for the first time this new year. And tomorrow I'll be speaking about this in greater detail, being on the actual day, but when I see these two candles next to each other, it does, this weekend in particular, bring memories back of the World Trade Center buildings and the tragedy that took place there 20 years ago, and what darkness that was for our world and for our nation and for our community. And so hopefully with the lighting of these candles, we can keep that memory in our hearts and hope that we can provide light in a world of darkness and be able to create a world that's holier and kinder to one another. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. we turn to page 140 at the indentation. Sadikata ha'yifrach ke'eret balvanon yizkei shetulim bevet Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu odinuvum beseva Shenim v'ranim yehiyu v'hagid ki yashar Adonai tsuri tsuri v'lo avlatabo. Page 144. Yitkada v'yikada shemei rabba Be'almadi vrachirute v'im lichmahute Be'hayehon v'yomechon Ufhayedeho be'Yisrael Ba'gala Ba'gala Uvizman kariv v'imiru Amen Yehei shmei rabba mevarach Ve'alam omel maya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'ishtabach Yitbar v'shemam v'naseh Yitadar vitale vitalal shemedigur jabrihu le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nehemata dahamihiram be'alma v'imiru. Amen. We rise for our call to worship the Baruch Hu on page 146. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorah. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed Baruch Hanai Baruch Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. Page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Page 150. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha 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 Avta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadta Aken Adonai Eloheinu b'shofteinu Uvkumenu nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha Uvmitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ki hem hayenu ve'orech yameinu Uvahem negei yomam v'layla ve'ahavtcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Baruch Hashem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Ve'afta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayam alevavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'letecha v'aderech u'shachvecha u'kumecha u'kshortam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtatam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem ekol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim loehem Ani Adonai Elohehem asher hotzeiti ethem meretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohehem Adonai Elohehem Amen. The story of the Mi Hamocha is a story of our people being given another chance. We had known freedom, and then we knew slavery. And once again, we got that opportunity to be redeemed and to not have our status quo determine the rest of our destiny. And this is very much what Shabbat Shuvah is all about, is this is a time for us to not only return to being better people, but also this is an opportunity for us to say that the people we are today, we aren't necessarily bound to be those people forever. That our inadequacy, our faults, our anger maybe that we have because somebody else did something to us, we can maybe in the future be free of all those things. This is our prayer, our song for hope. And you're invited to join in, page 158. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, b'hokei ayam lifmei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai lo le'olam va'ed, Adonai lo le'olam va'ed. Page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom Behamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom Behamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim Ushmor Tzeitenu Uvoenu lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. And on page 161, again, we think about how 20 years ago tomorrow was the most senseless act of violence and hatred that hopefully we'll ever witness in our lifetime. And let's join in for this prayer at the top of the page. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts. that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162 at the top of the page. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'dorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'dorotam berit olam. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'dorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'dorotam berit olam. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. We rise on page 164. Adonai sefatai tivta ufiad gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Bekonei Hakol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Gula Lifnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Le'oshia, Morid Hatah, Mechakel Hayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekahayem Emunato, Lishene Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memi, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neman Atalech HaHayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. 170. Atah Kadosh V'Shim HaKadosh U'Kadoshim B'chol Yom Yahallelu Chasel Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh Baruch Atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh. We continue silently or either through the pages of the Siddur, through page 180, or you can use this as an opportunity for your own prayers. And when you're finished, you may be seated. And please note any special Shabbat Shuvah readings. There are some. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon, lecho hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon, lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael, b'chol ed u'b'chol sha'ah, b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. This time we think of those who are entering this year in need of a prayer of healing. And as I've been mentioning this month, our Misha Berach list is unfortunately very long, which and also our attendance has not been too high lately. And so in an effort to encourage people to come to services and pray for their loved ones, but also to keep our list a little more concise, beginning in October, we're going to be putting the names of members and their immediate families on there and asking everybody else to come and share any names that they might have of people who could use healing of the mind, body, and spirit. So this week, we pray for these members of our community and their loved ones. Avraham Shlomo ben Yochanan V'Simcha, Elchanan Yitzhak ben Shamshin Pinchas, Eliza bat Orly, Esther bat Malka, Gitolea bat Mashahana, Meir Alter ben Balis, Menachem Mendel ben Toba, Michael ben Mania, Shaul Mordechai ben Chana, Yitzhak ben Etaleah, Yeshua David ben Shaul Mordechai Esther, Barbara Arnovitz, David Arnovitz, Mona Asher, Laureen Berry, Ariana Berenson, Kevin Bernstein, Hannah Brady, Marcia Bronsky, Denise Dobling, David Dowsett, Theo Dowsett, Evelyn Edwards, Jeremy Eckstein, Genevieve Ellsworth, Charles Frost, Will Goldman, Scott Hacking, Sharon Hobbs, Susan Horn, Sandy Kahn, Sharon Katz, Rabbi Dove Lerner, McCall Lifforth, Savannah Lifforth, Megan Magleby, Janet Mann, Jamie Manson, Tyler Matthews, Janet Morley, Tom Nelson, Shari Pedersen, Cynthia Pepper, Gerald Rosen, Luke Rosen, Philip Rosenberg, Ina Sable, Harvey Silverstein, Penny Spector, Angela Stefani, Linda Stern, Lauren Weiss, Judy Wolf, and Vanessa Zealot. And if you have a name to add, you're welcome to do so when I look in your direction. For all those who are in need of healing, turn to page 371. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habraha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habraha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. And the other day I was driving and I saw at a left turn, I'll put a little more tape on me, a left turn where I needed to turn around, there was a sign that said, no U-turns. And this sign got me thinking, you know, this is Shabbat Shuvah. Can we do U-turns in real life? And as I was contemplating this question, being who I am and kind of nerdy guy and stuff, I started thinking about the Hebrew language. Now, I'll explain about the Hebrew language. It's a very logical language. It's very formulaic, but it's very thoughtful and logical. The person who invented the modern Hebrew language, Hebrew for over 1,000 years, was pretty much about almost 2,000 years, was used just in prayer and liturgy and reading the Torah and stuff. It wasn't really used as a conversational language until this guy named Eliezer ben Yehuda decided to, in the 1800s, basically make that language come alive again. And one day, Eliezer ben Yehuda was getting out of the shower, and he turned to his wife and wanted to say to her, can you pass me the towel? And he says, and he realized there was no word for towel in the Hebrew. And so he said, magevet, which means the dry maker. And that today is the word for towel. And there's a lot of things like that in Hebrew. And there's a few words that have similar meanings, and I think it's so thoughtful. Like, for instance, The word bitachon has two meanings to it. One is security. So if you see like a security guard at something, they'll say bitachon on their uniform. But also it means trust. And that makes sense because if I don't trust someone, can I feel safe with them? And if I feel safe with them, then I must trust them. And likewise, we know the word shalom means hello and goodbye, but also it means peace. Like, when I'm singing Shalom Rav, I'm not singing hello, Rabbi. No, I'm saying abundant peace. Shalom is peace. But the word also for complete is shalem. And the word to pay for something is mishalem. And the reason for that is, can a peace really be peace if it's not a complete peace? Like, right now, Israel has peace with, if you will, with Iraq. They're not fighting each other, but do they really have peace if they don't recognize each other, if they don't have relations with one another? That's not really peace. It's more that they're just not fighting. And with mishalem, to pay, if I haven't completely paid for something, then I owe somebody something, and then we don't have completion between us, and therefore we don't have peace. So Hebrew has all these really thoughtful connections. And it seems like in Hebrew, there's a word for everything. I'm not making this up. Back in the days before we all had unlimited cell phone plans, remember we used to call people and we'd have a certain amount of minutes a month, and then once we went over that, we'd get massive phone bills, like insane phone bills. I was a teenager at the time, and my dad would scream at me, huge phone bills. And so in Israel, what people would do is they would call their friend, let it ring once, and then they would hang up so that their friend saw that they had a missed call and called them back. And that way, their friend was using their minutes, but they weren't using their own minutes to talk to their friend who they wanted to call. And there was one word, I forget what it was, but there was one word that described that entire process. So Hebrew seemed to have words for everything. What does this have to do with U-turns? Well, because I was thinking about it, and I remembered something that was taught to me when I lived in Israel. There is not a word in Hebrew for undo. There is no word in the Hebrew language for undo. And the reason for that is because it's impossible to undo something unless you have a time machine that doesn't exist. Like, think about it. Like, if I go up to Smith's, and I've done this before, I'm checking out all the groceries in my cart, and I stuck a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper underneath my cart, and I forgot it was there, and then I wheel it out to my car, load up my car, drive home, and I go, oh my gosh, I stole a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper from Smith's. I go back there and talk to the person and say, I accidentally walked out, forgot to pay for this, I'm so sorry. They ring it up, I pay for it. And great, we're good now, but I'm not undoing what I did. I still did it. I still stole a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper. I just came back and made it right. But I'm not undoing anything. And this is kind of, like I said, the focus of this Shabbat and this time of year. We talk about teshuvah, which we talk about being repentance. But this is not Shabbat teshuvah, rather this is Shabbat shuvah. Sounds similar, but it's different. Teshuvah, shuvah. But it comes from the same root. And what that means is this is the Shabbat of returning our souls to a place that's more pure, of returning our mindset to something more thoughtful, of returning our anger to somewhere else, and thinking about how we're going to move forward. But with teshuvah and shuvah returning, these words are connected again, because what the Rambam said, Maimonides, a great philosopher, said, is that the most ultimate way you can get teshuvah is by being in the same situation you were in before and making a different choice. Because I can tell somebody, I'm human, I sometimes lose my temper. One of my friends recently wrote a book called Rabbis Are Humans, Are People Too, and it's meant for children, but I'm getting it for myself, to remind myself that rabbis are people too, and sometimes we get embarrassed, sometimes we get sad, but sometimes we lose our tempers or get angry or aren't nice as nice as we should be. And sometimes, as an example, people will be gossiping around me. After all, I work in the Jewish community. A lot of gossip that happens. And there have been moments where I've either listened to the gossip or where I've chimed in with the gossip. And in order to get teshuvah, I can say, oh, I shouldn't have gossiped. I shouldn't have done lashon hara. I shouldn't have listened. I should have left. And I can even apologize to the person who was the victim of that gossiping. But in order for me to get teshuvah, I need to be in that same situation again and say, hey, right now there's a lot of gossiping going on about somebody who's in our community, who is supporting our synagogue, who's a fellow Jew. And I don't feel comfortable being around this. So I'm going to leave if you guys are going to continue talking about that. That's how I get teshuvah. Not just apologizing, but being in the same situation again, but making a different decision. And I think about that a lot when it comes to how we interact with others. Because it's easy for me to think about my shortcomings, but you know what's even easier for me to think about? Somebody else's shortcomings. I'm not that flawed, but look at this person, how flawed they are, and how they've wronged me in this way or that way, or whatever. And what we need to look at, too, is, are others who have perhaps harmed us, are they making efforts of redemption? I thought about that just the other day when I met with somebody who's not Jewish, who a while ago did something that was, I don't know if it was intended to be hurtful, but did something that was perceived as hurtful to many in the Jewish community, including myself. And this person has gone above and beyond and out of their way to make amends with the Jewish community and celebrate holidays with us and say, I don't want to be known as this person who doesn't like Jews, because that's not the case. I did something that was a huge mistake. And I want to be forgiven for that instead of labeled. And a prominent person I think of who very much comes to mind was Senator Robert Byrd. Does anybody know who Senator Robert Byrd was? So Senator Robert Byrd, I think he might have been the longest serving senator in U.S. history, or was way up there, at least. He started serving in the U.S. Senate as a senator from West Virginia in the late 1950s and served until his death sometime when Obama was president. So over 50 years, he was a U.S. senator. And very notably, before he was senator, he was in the Ku Klux Klan. But not only was he in the Ku Klux Klan, because Harry Truman was actually in the Ku Klux Klan. He signed up for membership so that he could get their votes for a local election, but never attended a meeting. This guy was like a grand wizard. Senator Byrd was like one of the heads of the Ku Klux Klan. And he was a World War II veteran, and when they talked about desegregating his unit, he wrote a letter saying that to the president, saying that he would rather see the American flag dragged through mud than to serve next to a black man. Well, while he was senator, Senator Byrd spent his career advocating for the Voting Rights Act, advocating for various civil rights bills, and he went on to endorse Barack Obama, the first black president, as president. And when he died, he was eulogized by another individual who's very flawed, Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton said about him, because Bill Clinton was thinking, how do I handle his past? I don't want to talk about what a great guy he was, because he had this horrible past. And he said, when he was a young man, he did some horrible things and made a horrible mistake. And that makes him a person, because we all can make horrible mistakes and do bad things. But Robert Byrd spent the rest of his life trying to make up for that horrible mistake he made. And that's why I think he was a good person. He was a person because he made mistakes. He was a good person because he spent the rest of his life trying to get teshuvah. I think about our own governor, by the way, Governor Cox, in that regard too. Governor Cox is somebody who's become a friend of mine, and I don't agree with him on every position. Something I appreciate about Governor Cox was that he has said that when he was a teenager, he would witness or maybe even sometimes partake in bullying of gay students. And then he heard how painful their stories were as a young adult. And he has spent, for the Republican Party, a lot of his efforts trying to promote LGBTQ rights and equality. Again, from what I've witnessed and heard, I know we have members of the queer community here among us tonight. See a few of you all, and so you can tell me if you disagree. But that's, at least from what I've witnessed, I'm not part of the queer community, so just as an outside observer. And so that's, I guess, not for me to judge, but for people in the queer community to ask, has he made teshuvah? No? And so as we are in these 10 days of repentance and finding ourselves now at Shabbat Shuvah, I think that we are finding ourselves in a moment of change, a moment of opportunity, but also a moment of opportunity to be able to change our future, but also how we're remembered. But in order to do that, we also need to think and reevaluate how we think of others. Have they made teshuvah too? And are we going to be prisoners to our own anger for maybe what they've done in the past as opposed to who they are now? I'm curious, by the way, we don't have that many folks here, so what are some of your thoughts? I'll open it up. Any thoughts? All right. Just spitballing. Well, something to think about. Anyhow, few announcements. I see, by the way, Dove DeLay here from our Board of Trustees. Thank you for all your leadership, Dove. Do you want to read the announcements, or should I? Up to you. You're more than welcome to. Give me a little break from talking. I'll welcome that. Let me make sure that's on. We're getting a new mic this week. Of course.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Dove.
Thank you to all our participants in the service today. Hello, those of you at home. Kol Nidre begins this Wednesday evening. If you're attending in person, please be in your seats by 7 p.m. for the 7:15 service. We look forward to seeing you here via live stream as well. Remember to bring your name badges, though, if you come. That's how you get in the door. They are your tickets to get in. And if you've not received your tickets, please check with the will call table when you come in. There have been a time change for our Yom Kippur Reform morning service. It will now begin at 9:15 in the Mountain View Sanctuary down the hall. The conservative Yom Kippur service begins at 9 and will be in the main sanctuary here. We'll all come together for the Torah service and Rabbi's sermon, and on Yom Kippur afternoon, we'll hold 3 breakout sessions. At 1:30, we have a very special guest. For this year, our programming includes a taste of Sukkot, an all-ages event on Sunday the 19th of September, including food and learning. It could not be Jewish if it did not have food and learning, with Rabbi Spector and our cantor Brown Levy. And lots of other events designed for the seniors, young adults, and women of Kol Ami. Check your announcements on the web in your programs. We're also having a food drive this time of year for the high holidays. We're collecting non-perishable canned or packaged food items to deliver to the Jewish Family Service Food Pantry, which I must say, I refer so many people personally to the Jewish Family Services Food Pantry, because it does not just give food to Jewish people. It gives food to people who need food, and it's a wonderful hidden treasure here in our community that we have to support. It's in our genetic makeup to do this, I must say. We're going to do this through the month of September, and there are bins located just inside here in the building in the south and west foyers. They also like money as well. And for our guests, please return your lanyards to the table in the lobby on your way out of the building. Thank you all, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Dov. Thank you for your leadership as one of our board members. So yes, please note that time change. Rosh Hashanah Day, our services went way too long, and so we are making teshuvah by finding ourselves in the same opportunity and making some adjustments to make sure that doesn't happen again. And so, thank you. Yeah, and there will be definitely more Sukkot programming coming out. I'm excited about that. I think I hear rain out there too, so maybe we're even getting a jump start on the Sukkot rainy season. All right, we are going to turn to page 586 for Aleinu. And we'll pray the Aleinu on the bottom of the page. I invite you to rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tekila liotzer breshit shelo asanu kevoye haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam hilkenu kahem v'gohar aleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Haaretz, U'Moshe v'Yikara b'Shamayim Mima'al, U'Shchinatu Zo, V'Govhei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einod, Emet Malkeinu Efes Zulato, Kakatuv B'Torato, Midat hayom v'hashivot elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim ima'al, ve'al ha'aretz mitachat einot. Katuv b'Toratecha Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar Ehaya Adonai le'melech al ha'aretz Vayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad. seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And, in particular, like I said, this Shabbat, and I'll be speaking of this more tomorrow, I think about all those people who 20 years ago tonight went to bed expecting the next day to just be a normal day. All the people who worked in the World Trade Towers and in the Pentagon, all the people who thought they were just taking a flight, all the firefighters who wondered what danger they would be running into the next day to try and save others, and so many others too. And this week we think of these people who are in the period of Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning. Leah Yufet Lifshitz, a person in the local Jewish community, Miriam Lerman, aunt of Susan Miro, and Ronald Stern, father of Alyssa Stern-Kolb. And we also today mark the Yortzites anniversary of the passing of these loved ones. Abraham Rappaport, Bertha Yanowitz, Hannah Mishnovich, Celia Margolis, David Hamlet, Edith Lux, Elliot Goldstein, George Lemaire, Gertrude Minelson Silverstein, Helen Coles, Henrietta Ginsburg, Irene D. Levine, Irene Stone Tannenbaum, Jacob Appelman, James Hammock, Joe Jack Eisen, Julius Dreyfus, Leah Kushner Zilberman, Lillian M. Finke, Mandel Goodman, Marin Weiss, Max Kaufman, Minnie Sonnenreich, Morris Marks, Neela Martinez, Pearl Dorothy Clinton, Pearl Pullman, Reva Kushner, Sally Oswald, Sam Schlesinger, Sarah Klashko, Sidney Lubin, Ted S. Bloom, and Wallace Wolf. If you have a name to add when I look in your direction, you're welcome to share a name, or for those watching at home, you're welcome to share a name too. Zichronam Libracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If it's your tradition to do so, you're invited to rise. We are on page 598. Yitkadal v'kadash shemei rabah, be'alman divrach hirte v'yamlech malchute, b'chayechon u'vyamechon u'chayei dechol b'nei Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevarach le'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudisha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amin ram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May His source of peace and peace to all her mourning, and comfort the bereaved in our midst. And we are going to conclude, like I said, with this weekend being the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we will conclude with a song praying for peace. Ohosei shalom bimromav, uyasei shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Yasei shalom, yasei shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yasei shalom, yasei shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat shalom, everybody.